Well, howdy, howdy, folks. How are you
Now,
guys doing this evening?
all right.
Just looking at my. Okay.
Greg's like frozen there.
You guys were just frozen.
Oh.
Hmm.
Well,
I hear something in the background. Is that one of you guys, or is that me?
it's probably my
Not it.
printer.
Okay. That's fine. It's not loud. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't me.
Yeah, it's probably that.
Well, how are things going, guys? It's we're in it here. It is the end of May, and the end of May means the bees are busy. So
Yeah.
so that's what's going on here in a nutshell. We've had a lot of rain down here, but the last week or week and a half or so, had a house not far from here in Headland, Alabama, got destroyed by a tornado a couple of days ago, which was brutal. It just kind of is weird. Kind of weird. It looked like it shifted the whole thing on its foundation, kind of set the roof off on the ground, and just the rest of the house kind of crumpled underneath it. It's kind of wild. And but I don't think the tornado did a ton of damage besides just that one house, that one little area right there. I think there was somebody else may have lost a barn, and there were some things that happened, but I haven't heard of a lot of other damage, like, just devastating damage. But those poor people, fortunately, they weren't home. They were out of town. It was on Memorial Day night, so it was 2 nights ago. But it was pretty rough. But anyway, but today was actually, I was inside most of the day, but I think it's been pretty nice today. So the bees hope they've been working. So what's up with you guys? Brian, what's going on up in your neck of the woods, man?
Well, we are finishing up with what they are saying is the 6th wettest spring ever recorded in Northeast Ohio.
Wow.
If we got like 0.4 or so more inches, that would take us up to number 2. So like we're real close to, it was wet. All of that said, last night they were saying we were supposed to have a little bit of a drizzle. It ended up staying south of us, and for the foreseeable future, there's absolutely no rain in the future. We are they're saying like in the 70s, at night 50s, so decent temperatures there. It's not going to be too crazy hot, won't be cool at night. And as far as flow, we should be getting into like the thick of it as far as the flow. Like we've got our blackberries, they're just now starting. Over at my mom, she's got blackberries in her yard. All of their blooms are open when I was over there today. The clover is just starting. Like it hasn't, it's not all over. Like the initial patches are here and there. The trees, there's still some trees also. So I'm thinking that if with all the moisture that we've had, that we should have a little bit of a decent flow. Look, DC saying I look as excited as he is. Yeah, yeah. But they're busy too. Like when I was over there today, they were just going to town. My mom said that if you wouldn't know any better, you would think they were swarming. That's how much activity there was. It was just you could and just look, and it was just nonstop like a freeway.
It's so much fun.
They're working stuff. The colonies themselves, they're putting on weight. I went over today and I had to check the Devil Hive that people, they can watch a video and learn about that thing. It is, who was it? The Waterboy? Waterboy's mama said, about everything was basically the devil, like foosball is the devil. Well, this hive is the devil. I went over and now they were a hair calmer, but I think that's because all the rain has stopped. They're able to forage. So a lot of the foragers, they're out doing stuff instead of being cooped up.
Sure.
But I got the last of my fabric done. So, the yard was all edged up, got the fabric done. I'm just letting them go. I'm going to let them go for a couple days, just kind of let them get into the swing of things. let them get out, start foraging, hitting things. And then I think over the weekend, I'm going to just randomly check some boxes, see how they feel, things like that. But, the yard, I think it's going to, I think things are going to get really busy. So at least I'll cross my fingers and hope and pray.
What about you, Greg? What's going on up at Nature's Image Farm?
Boy, precipitation, and I think it'll lay out the groundwork for a good late spring, early summer flow. But I know we did get a little bit of the tree crops coming in, but I think we lost most of the blackberry. By the time that it was ready to hit, we got rain again. The blooms ended up on the ground. Blackberries are they're an interesting crop though, because the wilds blackberry varieties, they will set fruit on the second year canes. And so sometimes it's kind of it's not quite like an ever bearing strawberry where it just keeps bearing throughout the entire season, but there should we sometimes we'll get a second flush of blooms and then berries. I hope that happens, because there wasn't a lot of flight days with any kind of blooms on there. But it is what it is. What I have noticed is that the bees are bringing in nectar. It's primarily off dandelion and white clover now. So now I'm kind of in this weird place where it would be so much work to go through to pull off supers that are mix and match and capped and ready off of the early spring flow to separate that more water white or clearer honey before it gets contaminated with white clover and tulip. I mean, not contaminated in a bad way, but before the quality of it and color and attributes change and get mixed with clover and tulip poplar. So now we're in a spot where I got to decide what in the world am I going to do? Just let it ride and just keep, let them. So that's going on. So we got hit. I must have been so tired last night. I didn't even hear the storm. But we woke up and then we live in the hills out here. And so it's kind of big gravel driveways going up the side of these, hillsides and such. And I think we had these massive cuts where we lost like 20 inches of stone, where all the 8s were gone, the 304s were gone. We were down into 2s, which is the base stone down through areas. So I spent a lot of today kind of putting all that back. I say all that because that amount of moisture is not helpful. It did rain nearly all day yesterday and today. So that does help soak into the ground, which will help some of these other crops to come. We've got like a 5-6 day forecast where we've got no rain and we're flirting with like 80 degrees. So it's going to be, we are going to be bringing in some nectar. So that is good. It's just, I don't think it's going to be not quite as, not as early as I would hope, but I kind of have to remind myself the Lord gives and takes away. So we didn't get the blackberry, but maybe we'll get some white clover and dandelion. Other than that, our overwintered nuke season is behind us, and we're steamrolling right ahead into spring nukes. So now for the next 3 weekends, we'll have nuke pickups here at the farm for our spring nukes. And then it's just, we were like right now we are just in peak labor. Like it's just there's a lot going on right now. It's the most time intensive, I think, part of the year, but it's also the funnest. I love if I could just make a living making splits, selling nukes. I just love it. I love this aspect of our beekeeping operation. But yeah, moving forward from there. Bruce, I've been thinking about you a lot lately. Jake's been working on, I got to figure out some kind of name for it, but kind of the larger 30-minute video of our visit down with you earlier this year. Guys, you don't want to miss it. There is just so much cool stuff. And I think the presentation of it, you'll just really enjoy, because it's not like, it's not a how-to, as Mr. Mike Berry would say, which is also featured in this video. But it's just a neat experiential kind of a thing. I think you'll really like to watch it. It feels more like I don't know, like one of those 30-minute Duck Commander kind of shows where it's stuff's moving and moving along. Just Bruce, I'm just grateful, man. Just the time that we spent there, and it seems like it was a long time ago. It was only yesterday, but when we replay the video, I really hope folks watch it, because this is the only way you're going to actually get a real feel of what it's like when you have people who just love to be around each other and love bees, and they're working together. I think you'll get a real sense of that camaraderie. Like, there is just nonstop jokes. I mean, it is nonstop. You might not be able to pick up on all of it on the mics, but Bruce and I and Mike, we're going back and forth. We're always cutting up. We're always joking. We're always having a good time, but we're getting it done at the same time. So to me, man, it was just wow. What a great trip. So folks, tune in tomorrow. It's going to be a lot of fun. What a great video. So Bruce, that's just I'm excited about that. I know it's been I wish I would have gotten that out a little bit sooner. But it's just all the little things that I forgot about. It's just to see them and replay that, just super cool stuff. But anyway, so keep an eye out tomorrow. That one will launch tomorrow. I got to figure out some kind of clever name for it. It might just be, it's so extremely clever that it would just be something like Bee Adventure with Bruce's Bees.
A clever bee video.
Clever bee. Yeah, leave it to Cleaver. Or no, yeah, anyways. That's what's going on here, Bruce. So
it was definitely an adventure, and Jake was able to film a lot more than I was, and I thought my video turned out pretty fun, but I can't wait to see it. It'll be great, and I would encourage people to watch it. We did have just a phenomenal time while you were here. I down here this past weekend, my colonies are mostly pretty much stacked up. I think I've got a few supers left. I have a few frames that were messed up with wax moths that I could reprocess. Probably maybe have 100 frames or so. But I went ahead when I was getting the supers ready. Any boxes that had 10 frames, I just kind of would take them out. So I was able to kind of match or even increase my super count this year. I think I've got around 300 supers plus on my colonies total. And they are just, I'm hoping they're stacking it in. I mean, we had a really nice spring honey crop. We had 45-gallon buckets, 200 gallons, average reaches up. I mean, we're going to say 2,400 pounds. We'll just say a little over a ton for the spring flow. And now, hopefully, they're packing it in. The tallow is blooming now, but we've had several days of quite a bit of rain, several inches of rain around here. And so I hope they're able to get nectar up to the flowers and continue to pack it in. I know they've been extremely busy. I went out this past weekend. I went and I was just kind of trying to do some odds and ends. I had about 5 nukes that I had made with queen cells that I had to do something with. I sold a couple. I had already put a couple in colonies, already done a few things, but I just wanted to find a home for these 5 nukes. And so I went down to Appleton Farms. The goal was to find colonies that were double deeps that were a little bit weaker and just put a nuke in there to strengthen them. I didn't look for the queen. I just, it's the Mike Berry quote, is how I did it, not how, it's not a how to do it. And I think, Brian, if I'm not mistaken, and Greg, I think that Randy Oliver talks about how he just combines colonies like that. He just, if he wants to strengthen them or if he feels like he needs to do that, he'll stick a colony on top of another one. The queens kind of work it out. So I did that. I've done that some recently, and it seems to work out okay. And if you lose it, I've almost have too many bees. So if I lose a colony, it's just more equipment for next year. You know what I mean? Or I can stack it on somebody else, which is what I ended up doing on a couple of them. I was out there. I believe it was Friday, whatever day it was. It was the 22nd, whatever day that was. But so I did several different things, and I'm going to have a video. I'm going to name it something like Mike Berry named his last one, almost like Around the Apiary. And then he lists about 3 or 4 different things that he did. That's kind of what I did. I went out there. The main goal was to put, to do something with those nukes. The second goal was to check strength of the colonies, just peeking on some lids. Also, I had a few honey supers left I wanted to get on hives. And so I wanted to, if I had single deeps that were strong enough, I was going to slap a queen excluder on there with a super and a lid. And I also found one dead out. So in the video, I talk about how it's actually, the dead outs with high beta larvae all in them are kind of disgusting, but it's kind of sounds a little bad, but I kind of enjoy getting the old blowtorch out and just cooking those things. It smells
can
like
smell
burned
it from
hair.
here.
So I spent a
Delicious.
couple minutes on that, and then I just did all kinds of stuff right there at Applin that day and filmed a little bit of all of it. I actually have some frames, some comb honey frames from, cut comb type honey frames from 21st Bee that I put in, and I showed kind of how I'm doing that. And then at the end of it all, I had the great privilege of weed eating around those colonies. I hadn't weed eaten them or really
Oh,
done anything to control the weeds this year yet. And there were some of those weeds were growing up really big. And so, boy, they really loved that. So Brian, I'm going to once again, my technology situation, I'm going to try to share a video here of me after I weed eated. After I weed eat, I guess that's how you say it.
Weed eated it.
Let's see. How do I? Oh my gosh.
Weed ate? What's the proper past tense of that? Weed ate? As you weed ate? No one says, I just got done weed eating.
Let's see if it pops up here. Okay. I don't know if y'all can see this. I don't know if we'll have volume or sound, but these are some of the colonies there at Applin Farms that hopefully you can hear the sound. If not, then that's too bad. But they didn't all look like this, but they were fired up after I weed eated it out there. Let's see if you can see it. Whoops, what'd I do? I don't know what I did.
That's been that end of the yard always just a little bit have a little more personality.
Can you guys hear them? Can you hear that? I don't know if you can hear it. Can you hear it?
No, but I can imagine what that sounds like.
Look at all those bees. It sounded, Brian, you talked about something sounded like a swarm. That sounded like a swarm.
Yeah.
And they were just.
Why did they do that? Just because you're weed whacking? Were they all over the ground? And you're slicing and dicing them, and they're.
I don't know. All I know is they just don't like it. They don't. Are yours little puppy dogs when you're weed eating around them?
Yeah, I mean, literally, I'll wear a. One of us will just wear. If it's me, I'll just throw on my. I'm not even sure what is it. Man Lake makes it. Just my regular, just veil top, and I'll weed whack. I mean, I'll zero turn around mine. Then they're usually fine, but. I'm
trying to figure out how to get to where I can get back to my. I want to show you some more pictures.
When I did the edging and that new fabric on mine, I took the weed whacker down and I, got as close as what I could, and then I ran the mower just to knock all the grass down. And then when I put
nice.
And I mean, they were fired up.
That Slocum there, they look pretty good too. We're getting ready, man. I'm getting excited about it.
I just saw a video. That's fun. I just saw a video today of us in that yard back in January there.
So I mentioned I'm doing the coming back talking about honey, the comb honey from 21st Bee, but I was out at Applin Farms on Saturday. They had a large order of honey, which look how pretty this is. I'm just kind of show and tell here. That's the display they have there. They got 300 bottles from me. That's pretty cool.
That's a nice invoice.
If you're wondering what those bottles are, those are actually pint squeeze bottle square bottles. I get them from Cellular Plastics, and that's the only place I sell these. I don't sell them to anybody else. Applin has dibs on these, and they sell so many of these things. They're a pint. They're tall and skinny. They look bigger than a regular pint, but people love these things, and that's the only kind of honey bottles they get from me. So they also said they're going to buy my cut comb if I can get that. And then the other thing I did after I went up there and I bought a peach, I bought some peaches, I bought some blackberries. Speaking of peaches and blackberries, did you guys know, you probably know this already, but one of the best things in the world is peach and blackberry cobbler. I didn't know you could have both. I asked Annette, I said, should we make peach cobbler or blackberry cobbler? She said, well, why don't we just make it together?
I never had that.
She said, that's a thing. And oh my gosh, y'all, it was so good. But the other thing I did when I went down and after I took the honey out to Applin Farms, I went down and just kind of drove through the bee yard. And I found, the hive that was so stirred up after the weed eating, I found that it was really covered in bees and they needed a super. I was out of supers and I didn't even really check on those to see if they needed supers or not. But so I went and I dug out my simple comb here. I went ahead and got it waxed up and ready to go. I had 2 supers worth of that, which is, I guess, how many is that? That's, 80 to 160 cassettes. Is that right, Brian? I think there's 80 per super. And so I'm trying it again this year. And this year I'm doing a little different. This year I'm going to put it strictly on These are the colonies right here. Those are
Boomers.
those same colonies that were so crazy. Now it had been raining here. You can see it was really wet and damp. And so I went ahead and decided. I went down there. I think it was Monday evening. It was late in the evening, probably 6:30 or 7. It just rained pretty hard, and it was between rainstorms. It was drizzling a little bit there. And so I decided to go ahead and put the supers on there, the Simplecom Super. So that's what it looked like with the before I did anything to them. Didn't use smoke or anything. I pulled the lids off, and that's what was inside.
Gosh.
Do you think those boxes might be able to make a frame? If those boxes don't make a box of Simplecom, then I give up. Look at that
Yeah,
right there. I
no
think they're
doubt.
gonna be able to do
If
it. What
that
do you
won't
guys
do it,
think?
it can't be done. Yeah, that's
So then I
beautiful.
slapped a Queen Excluder on top, and then I added the Super
Bruce,
Simplecom
before
on
you go
top.
on, what's the story with did we pull nukes out of those, or is that a split?
I am not sure. They're not. I don't think they're actual splits. We may have pulled nukes out of them. They don't have a bucket on top, which means that they didn't have any
Right, it
queens in
wasn't
them.
a split. Maybe a
And now
parent
it's
colony.
possible that these might have been some of the next round of splits I did with cells, but I doubt it, them being this strong. But this is afterwards, after they actually had the supers on there with the excluders and the lid. And I'm just going to see if they'll fill them up. I think they will. If we have plenty of flight time. It's been raining a lot. Hopefully we'll have plenty of flight time for those beasts to go out and make an entire Super Simplecom. One thing about the Simplecom, tonight we're talking about honey. One thing about the Simplecom that's been difficult for me is I've tried to incorporate them on colonies that had liquid honey coming in. I've been trying to kind of put it in a box like that had a couple supers on there because I didn't want to lose liquid honey production to try the Simplecom. So they would fill out maybe half the cassettes in there, the little packages, or they wouldn't fill them out very well, or different things. But this year I just said I'm going to put them on super strong colonies, which is what Mick's been telling me to do all along. But I said I'm just going to do it because these hives need supers. I don't have any more supers of regular drawn comb, so or foundation for that matter, really, unless I reprocess on my old comb. And so I just decided I'm just going to go do it. So I went and I waxed it up right there and just slapped them on there. And we'll see how it works out. I will say for those who've tried Simplecom in the past, how do I stop sharing here? Just need to stop. Let's see.
I think it's Control Alt Delete. Control Alt Delete.
There we go. Yeah, let's don't do that. So
he's on a mat, guys. Slow down, calm down. He's not giving bad IT advice.
Now,
I am, but he's on a Mac. That's not going to work.
Bruce will not get this at all. But in the tech world, what happened right there, that was an ID 10T error.
Okay, you're right.
It sounds right. I mean, I've got no reason to argue with that.
Yep, it's an ID.
Greg, I'm sure Greg understands that, though, right?
No, I don't understand that.
Think ID 10 and T.
ID. I'm not smart enough to spell idiot. I feel like an idiot.
Okay, I got you now.
That's what it is. When somebody's totally clueless and they're like, "Can you look at my computer?" You could be like, "Oh yeah, that was an ID 10T error."
Yeah, I got you.
They'll be like, "Wow," and they'll be,
Bruce, two things real quick.
Okay.
Or actually, you keep going. Maybe unless you're on a thought, keep going.
Yeah. So as far as Simplecom goes, I think it's going to probably work. I hope it does. Obviously, those colonies are strong enough. Obviously, they're gonna. Yeah, people are saying what it is in here, and that just shows. Okay, I get it, guys. I get it. But so I think they'll be able to fill them up. I hope they will. But Appleton Farms basically told me that they would be able to. They wanted some more. Last year, I took them 30 or 40 cassettes or packages of Simplecom, and they sold them very fast. And so he said, "Hey, you gonna have any more of that comb honey stuff you had last year?" This year, I told him I was just going to do the cut comb or the comb honey out of the 21st bee frames, but I've decided to do Simplecom as well. So hopefully I'll have a lot of nice comb honey for them to be able to sell. And it'll be interesting to see which sells better or if they both just sell the same. I'm just going to try the standard cut comb honey, put it in little square plastic containers, and then just sell it that way. But I've never really done that before. So it's going to be a first time doing that. So it'll be interesting. Maybe some folks can throw some ideas in the comments here as far as the best way to do that. What I'm planning on doing is either doing the the 21st Bee frames, Infinity frames, are set up for 4x4 squares. But obviously, if you have 4x4 squares, you can also do 2x4 squares. You cut them in half. And so I don't know if the better way to do it to be the most profitable, or people are more likely to buy or purchase the 2x4 or the 4x4. But I see people charging crazy amounts of money for those things, and I guess they sell them. So I don't know. I'm not from down here in Alabama. I'm probably not going to charge super crazy prices for them, but it should be a way to make, if they fill them out, the standard cut comb ones, they should sell well. I would hope they would. So we'll see what happens. But that's something I'm doing new this year. And then I'm hoping that I'm doing the simple comb properly this year to be able to really fill them out really nice and consistently throughout those supers. Greg, you had a comment or question there?
Two things. Can you pull that photo up of the bees bowling over and you got a super on top with your excluder below?
Yeah, give me a second because I'm slow. I should have just left it pulled up on there, but
it's not you. It's the computer. It's one of those. What do you call them, Brian's? ID10 keys?
No, it's me.
It's ID10 terror. T-terror.
It is definitely me. Oh, sure.
Well, what I was thinking, Jake actually said it earlier today. We've been working on thinking about how we can kind of like clean up our YouTube channel. Like, what can we be more, and to use a Bruce's Bees word, intentional with the type of videos that we're putting out there. So one of the things that everyone will start seeing is like a video called This Week with Greg, and it'll be literally just a whatever's going on that week, just a bunch of different things in that video. So you'll see a This Week with Greg videos that are going to be coming out. You may see one that's going to be like a dedicated deal, like this one with Bruce. It's just all going to be about that. And then you'll see ones that we're going to be trying to put out on Sundays, which are more devotion based. But Jake was saying, why don't we put out a maintenance video, like on how we're actually maintaining like the grounds? Because he hooks up a truck and trailer and equipment and goes out and services the bee yards and makes sure he's keeping them nice. But in that photo, where you can see where you had just weed whack, one thing that I've noticed is bees absolutely hate the string of a weed whacker zipping around them. The motors, I mean, I don't think they mind that quite as much. Like we've got a zero turn that we run through there. They could almost care less about the zero turn unless we're bumping into stuff. But there's a piece of equipment, if anyone is using steel weed whackers or weed eaters or string trimmer or whatever the name you call it in your part of the country, I've been thinking about buying another one of them. I used to use them a lot for a different reason, but they have a power scythe attachment that will go on your steel machines there, and I really like those because those are if anyone is familiar, old timers here, Bruce would probably be familiar with them too. Bruce, do you know what a sickle bar mower is?
No.
You've probably seen them.
It sounds familiar, but
old ones were horse drawn, but you'll see them on the back of tractors, PTOs. But it's a long, it looks like just a long tooth bar. And it just runs and it cuts big long bar.
These cut hay.
Yeah, you cut your hay standing, or a lot of times they will like articulate and they'll kind of go down. And so if you're cutting like a bank, you can run down a bank and cut the side of a bank out. Anyways, the same kind of concept, very similar, or similar to like a bush hedge trimmer, that kind of same concept. But they've got there's the power side attachment for your string trimmer. And I really like those. Those are really handy around the bees because you don't have the string zipping. And then it doesn't throw grass all over the place. It just really cuts it and lays it down, which is really nice. No matter, wax tip boxes, you start weed whacking on a hot day and you start just throwing grass clippings all over the place. I mean, eventually the rain will hit it. It'll wash it off. It'll go back down to the ground. But string trimming, when the weeds are so high, just that stuff, that grass, the clippings, it goes everywhere, all over everything. what I hate is when that happens and it gets into the entrances, or the grass is so tall and you're going through and mowing, and then you're blowing the actual clippings are launching all over the fronts of on the four ways, all over the entrances. So that's one thing I want to say. Just look at the power scythe concept and see if you think that would be helpful for you. The other thing I wanted to talk here just a second, Bruce, if we go to, I don't know, you had a photo earlier of the bees kind of boiling over right before you put a super on. Any of those would work. Okay, a lot of folks, when they see that, Bruce, the reason I asked you what if we had made splits out of that, or what the sequence of events was up till now, a lot of folks are going to see that and immediately get very uncomfortable. Because a lot of folks are going to look at that, and the first thing they're going to think is those bees are ready to swarm. But what you're doing here is you're not giving them any more room in the brood space. You're giving them supers up above, and the idea would be to have as much of that nectar that is maybe jamming up the brood areas, have them start to put that on top, hopefully free up some of the brood nests. But at this point in the season for you, Bruce, are you still worried about these bees running out of room and swarming, or are you already past that?
I'm kind of past it. This is something I see a lot of people do, is they just freak out if the bees look like this. And this is what I want my bees to look like this time of the year. I just want them to be boiled. I don't want to be able to see the top of the frames. And people just are always like, oh my gosh, your bees are going to swarm me. You need to stack a bunch of supers on. And I could frankly stack more than what I did on there. If I had more, I would. But this time of the year, man, they are just, I mean, there's a chance they'll swarm. I mean, I'm not saying they won't, but the way you maximize honey harvest, and we're going to talk about, that's what the topic is tonight, is you need to have maximum population at the right time. And so that's a pretty good population right there, I think. And they should be able to, and a lot of those, the ones hanging out on the front porch, I'm guessing are probably mostly foragers, I would imagine. And so, if somebody says throw 4 supers on, they'll roll. They would, Keith, but I'm going to let them really focus on those simple comb honey supers and just see what happens. And I don't have supers, honestly. I don't have enough frames. I've got some supers, but I don't have enough frames. I've got hives stacked all over the place that look just like this that have 3 and 4 supers on them. I'm just out. I've got 300 supers out or so. It might be give or take a few, but I just don't have any more. I really don't want any more honey than that, to be honest. That's about all I want to try and do. So, but yeah, these things are ready to rock and roll. But yeah, it's a risk. There is a risk. Anytime you get bees crowded like this, there's a ton of bees like this, there is a risk of swarming. It's there. But I think once they really hit that honey flow, full out production mode, they're more likely to become honey bound than they are to swarm. Not that they won't swarm. I'm not saying that. Nothing's 100%. But I do think personally that they tend to they snap more into the production mode and collect that honey mode. And they're not so worried about swarming then. They're kind of here in this area, the swarming urge is mostly gone. Once again, not that they won't, but that is usually we're pretty much done with that by the first part of May. You do see swarms in May, but it's not near as common as March and April around here.
Mm-hmm. I think economics play into this too, Bruce, because if your bees had looked like this and you didn't split them at all, or you didn't pull them back, they would have had minimum 3 extra frames of brood. That would have been 6 frames of bees. That box would have been even more so boiling out and could have been in swarm danger. But I think, one thing to consider, if you're supering up, the clock is ticking on the length of the flow. I'm assuming in your neck of the woods,
for sure, yeah.
Yeah. Do you think this is a 7 to a 14-day opportunity, or a little bit longer than that?
No, the tallow, that's one thing good about tallow, is it typically, they don't all bloom at once. And so they will start, we've got some trees right now that are almost done producing, but then the next ones, there are some that just have shoots coming out. And so it actually lasts about probably 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks in some years, where they just kind of it's a staggered flow. And so that's why it's so good. It is hot and heavy, probably for about the middle 2 weeks of that, but it is just crazy, as long as it doesn't rain constantly, which we've had a lot of rain the last few days. But
yeah,
well, if we can get some sunny weather, some hot and humid, it really works well, I think, better during the hot and humid weather, which we have here in Alabama, of course, but it's gotta It's got to clear up a little bit. Today, I think, was pretty clear, but man, I was out there. What day was it? Like last, I don't know if it was Friday or Saturday. It may have been, or maybe been Sunday afternoon. Whenever it was, I just kind of went to a couple of bee yards. I think it was Saturday afternoon, and just sat there. You know, the old chair at the beehive type thing. But I just kind of sat in my truck, and I got out and walked around, and that's when I made those two shorts. The "Can you hear it?" The one that said "Can you hear it?" and the other one where I was looking at the bees working in unison there at the front of the hive. And they were just so happy. They weren't worried about me one bit. I was out there in shorts, and they've got thousands of bees flying everywhere. Like the Atlanta airport times 20, and they just could care less. They were bumping into me, and they kept flying on by. They were just so happy and just killing it. And so that's the best time. You can smell the honey. You can smell it in the air. You can smell them like they're all fanning. It's everything. It's in perfect harmony and unison. That's the best time of year.
Yeah, it's nice.
And so that's what I love, is going to the bee yard when that's going on, and they're just not too concerned about me.
Well, the reason I asked that is because to me, if I'm looking at that like from an economic standpoint, okay, so if the bees swarm, you're not going to be beeless. And honestly, if both those boxes swarmed right now, you would have probably zero idea when you were in there, because they would still be jammed full of bees. But the reason I asked about the length of the time, or the length of the flow, is like here. I don't know, Brian. Do you get flows that are lasting more than like a week or two? Like flow, like I mean, like significant super up flows. Do they last more than 2 weeks?
We haven't had one here in a while. Just the last 2 years has just been.
It'll be a blend of stuff maybe in the summer that's just trickling. Yeah. The reason what piques my interest with this idea is, okay, so what? Maybe they're going to swarm, maybe they're not. You've got to have bee numbers. The secret to making honey is making bees. So if you're making bees and you can get them to make honey, if you can get them right to the edge of wanting to swarm, even if they decided right now they want to start making swarm cells, like I almost wouldn't even care for me, because if I'm supering up, we're still going to have full field force maturity for 2 weeks. If they decided today they were going to start, moving forward, and you've got 16 days before you have a virgin that's going to hatch, you probably, most of the time, at least with our genetics, we see them swarming either right at hatching or just barely before. It's not a week before a cell hatches. So for me, I'm thinking, well, worst case scenario, you've got you're going to make 2 weeks of a heavy flow. You're going to fill both supers. So if they do swarm in this scenario, right as they're finishing the second super, you guys do your own math, but let's just say that they're medium supers at 3 pounds of honey a frame, 30 pounds a box, times 2, 60 pounds of honey, and you all in your own mind do what your net profit is on that times 60 pounds. I mean, guys, you almost don't care if the box swarms. As long as they make those 2 supers of honey, it's a moot point, really, at that point. The time and energy and effort that it would take, that you'd be going through and checking for queen cells and doing all that, if you can get them built up to this point, I think you're far better off to just super them up and then gather the crop, pull that crop off. I mean, even if you're selling wholesale and you're still clearing $6 or $7 a pound, I mean, times that by 60, that is you're totally squared away on your turn for that unit. But if they swarm, they're not gone. They didn't abscond, So let them make a queen, add a queen, whatever it needs to happen. But I think you got to start thinking about, when you start thinking of the bees as an asset, you don't get as scared at stuff all the time, because you say, okay, well, what is the turn here? Was it going to make me some money, or is it not? Is it a liability or an asset? And then what's the maturity time? How long is it going to take to get to that point? And then you say, well, okay, well, I mean, if these bees would have swarmed, 2 weeks ago, and you would have lost half the bees, maybe they would have made 1 super even. They're not going to make 2 or 3 or 4, probably not. But that's just, that's how I think about it, Bruce.
I honestly don't remember these bees I would have stacked them up sooner with more supers had I thought they were strong enough to do so when I was originally putting boxes on. So what I think has happened is, I think these must have been either splits that I made with queen cells right after you were here, Greg. My first round of queen cells I did with splits when I made nukes, and maybe did this, or possibly, I don't remember where they came from. Possibly they were hives that that had the original queens in them when you were here. And we remember, I think this is the yard where we moved the queen away.
Yep.
Possibly these are some of Zach's queens, maybe from last summer that he sent me, and now they're maturing to full maturity. I don't know if that's the case or not. It's very possible. Because like probably 2 to 3 weeks ago when I was peeking in there stacking supers, I obviously didn't put supers on them. I may have put a second box on them, but for whatever reason, they have absolutely exploded. As you can see, they must have had a lot of brood in there I wasn't aware of. And they just obviously blew up into those boxes, and they just, I mean, my goodness, look at them, you know, and that can happen seemingly almost overnight. And so
it's nice.
It's just a lot of fun. I see a lot of YouTube videos. I watch a lot of folks with YouTube videos, and they just don't have a lot of population in their hives, and they can't understand why they don't have honey. And I'm like, you have to have population. Even like, for example, I have, like, if you see in the right-hand corner there, I don't know if you can tell or not, but there's a single deep right there behind it. If this time of the year, if I'm trying to get honey and they haven't grown into a double deep, maybe say it's a fairly new split, I don't know if that hive is strong enough to actually do this with. I don't know. I don't think it has a super on it. I think it's just a single deep. It might not be very strong, but if I have singles that I've recently dropped into a single box with a nuke and it's grown into the single box, and I want to make honey on those hives, I'll slap a queen excluder down and a super on there and let them make a super honey instead of putting the second double deep on there. If I'm trying to make honey production, because you have to have population. If you put another deep on there right now in the middle of a honey flow,
they're not going to
unless you want to pull that deep with honey, but she'll start laying up there. But they will put honey in that deep, or if it's foundation, they probably won't get it drawn out, and you risk not getting a honey crop off of it. So just slap your queen excluder on there, put a super on there, and let them make honey. And then you can deal with it later. For example, and I'll go through it after the honey's over. Right now I'm just letting them do what they're going to do. Some of these colonies, I hope maybe not these two, but some of the colonies I have probably swarmed. They might be queenless, but they're still putting honey in. Some of them will get weak. Some of them will kind of begin to die out as the honey comes off. But I assess all that after it's over. If I go up into the bee yard and I see that the hive just has very few bees coming out of the front, nothing's going on, I pop the lid. I've got 2 supers on there on a colony like this with 2 supers, and there's just nothing going on in there. I will go down and investigate and see. And if it's a weak colony or if it's a dead out, I'll just throw those boxes on other colonies and let them fill them up, you know. But for the most part, I'll leave them alone. I've got them pretty much set up. I would kind of wish I had some more supers, but I don't, in a way, because I don't really want any more honey than what I'm going to get. I overdid it with my splits this year, I'm afraid. And these queens are just doing phenomenal, as you can see right here. But I have a lot of colonies that if I didn't have them stacked up with honey supers, they look just like this right here. But with, you know, when they got 3 or 4 supers on them, they don't look quite as crazy because the bees are all up in those supers putting honey in there, hopefully. So it's exciting, man. It's a fun time of the year. It's my favorite time of the year. And so I just love it. But anyway, that's pretty cool stuff.
Obviously healthy, because sick bees aren't making brood. So
no, they're not typically, no. But yeah, let's see. I'm trying to get here.
No.
So I know that. Go ahead, Brian.
I think I actually have a video. I do. Here. Let me see if here, let me see. How can I do this?
Oh no. Let's not see the tech wizard hold up his phone to the camera for a video.
I know. I don't want to do that.
It's killing him right now. He's thinking, do I do it or do I don't? That's what he's thinking.
You can share a screen, can't you, Brian? You can share it to computer and share a screen.
Yeah, but I've got an Android, so it doesn't sync with my Mac.
We still love you. It's okay. There's still hope. Yeah. We're praying for you.
Let me see if
you have a picture. What was that picture of your? Was it your?
It's a video I did today of. Let me see. Oh, here we go. Look at this. It's synced to my Google account.
Imagine that.
Here. Let me see.
So, folks, while Brian's finding that, I appreciate you all being in here tonight. So many names that we recognize, a few names I haven't seen before, maybe, and we appreciate everyone being in here tonight. We've got almost 170 folks on here. Yeah, man, that's what I'm talking about.
Holy moly! What in the world? Okay, this is the
dim ray. Those dim rays.
Demery, yeah. Or how are we saying it?
Demeray. Look at the front of that box there. Oh, it's just that deep it's just packed with bees.
Yeah, man.
What,
That's what I
what's
like to
with
see.
what's with the
The what?
oh gosh, my brain's fried. What do you call the ventilation method when you slide your boxes front to back? Is that
Oh,
what is
right
that what's
there.
going on in those? Is that what I'm seeing?
Yep.
I just call it I call it a staggered
Yeah.
box.
Now
That's what you call it.
Yeah, there you go.
the copper dipped on the left, the back of that box, there is probably a 5 or 6 inch just massive cluster of bees that are on there. Plus, you can see on the front of there, they're on there as well. So
Is this a
those colonies are,
pre-heat? Is this a preventative measure that you're just doing ahead of time before it gets hot, or is this a part of the DeMarie?
well, that's what the Demaray, those colonies, when I pop even the top with
Packed
2
out.
deeps and 3 supers, when I crack the top, all 10 frames, they're layered with bees. I mean, those boxes they're just packed. Now, they're starting to put in some weight also.
Do you have an excluder? Oh no. So no,
Yeah,
you
there's
okay.
an excluder. So there's a deep, and then there's an excluder, and then
Yeah.
there's 3 mediums and a deep on top.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. The staggered. So maybe we could kind of each of us kind of talk about some philosophy or theories we have on maximum honey production. That is kind of the topic. We've already been addressing some of the success we're having. One thing, Brian, I will mention with your videos with the Demaray, what I'm noticing is you got those bees kind of looking like those ones we showed you where you don't see a lot of frame. You almost can't see the top of the frames in some of them. That's, to me, man, just got to have population. And that's what the Demaray is designed to do, is give you a lot of population.
Yep.
It'll be interesting to see how they do. It seems
Yeah.
like they're working really well for you so far. I could do that, but I just can't. I can't do that. There's no way I can do it, and I don't need to do it.
When
But if
you get
I think if I could decrease my hive count probably by 25% and Demaray everything and still probably get more honey than what I get now, honestly. But it's just I like to run the double deep systems, and it's kind of I think it's a
Yeah.
little bit tricky to do it that way, and so I'm not. But so
Yeah.
Brian, why don't we? I guess we can dive in here. First of all, if folks have questions, we're already about 50 minutes in. So if folks have questions, put them in all caps. We'll try to get to some of those at the end. But I'd like for each of us to try and take maybe 5 to 10 minutes to talk about kind of our methods for honey production, some things that we feel like will help maximize honey production. We've already discussed a few of those kind of from the philosophy I have on that. But maybe first of all, some things that you do to maximize honey production, and I guess what you like to see in the colonies, and how you set your hives up for success. So, Brian, why don't we start with you? Then we'll go to Greg.
I'll tell you what I learned years ago now. You got to have those healthy colonies. And what I started doing very early in the season is I started supplementing my colonies to start boosting them up. I have found that when you boost those colonies and you're growing numbers, then, like you said, you got to have bees to produce the honey. So that's always worked for me. But, I mean, it's like a double edged sword, though, because you can get into situations where it's going to backfire on you if you don't watch everything. But for me, like, now this is the first year that I've done the Demaray. So I cannot say, like, here's a comparison, here's what I got this year versus what I got prior years. But like what I've always done in the past is when I would have my colonies set up going into the flow, I would always split them, and I was very conservative with my splits because I did not want to reduce the population of those production colonies. So I would pull like 2 frames of brood. It was very minimal. A frame of food out, and I would set them up in a small colony that would basically grow that entire season then. That was always my plan. This year, I did not want to grow numbers past where I'm at now, so I went the route of doing the Demaray, and it's you build these massive colonies. You're not splitting horizontally, you're splitting vertically, so you're not removing any of the population from that colony. So it maintains its population and it grows. Well, like you said, population with bees, you're going to end up producing honey. So that's what my like whole entire plan this year as far as honey production. It's Demaray, and hopefully it works. We'll see. Now I've gone over, and for it being what, May 27th, and we've got a couple weeks yet. We've got 3 or 4 weeks before I will extract. Um, some of those colonies, when I was trying to lift just to get the fabric fished under my stands, some of those jokers were they were heavy to the point where I was leaning against the stack when they were ratchet strapped and pushing and fishing with my feet to fish the, fabric under them. So there's some weight on them, but you figure, like you guys saw those stacks, there's 5 boxes. So there's 50 frames with bees, with their stores, plus whatever nectar they've already been pulling in. So they're heavy. So we'll see
That's
though.
key.
I mean, in theory, if you do the Demaray or Demaree or Demari correctly,
Ooh. Wow.
did you see that? There's
The wordsmith.
I know there's
Yeah,
half a dozen
he's
different
good.
ways that you can pronounce it. But if you do the Demaray correctly and you follow the timeline, you're setting it up for success. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Now, you have to have Mother Nature that cooperates also, because, of course, if you have these massive populations and there is absolutely no flow, well, that could backfire on you also, because you could have a colony that grows, eats all of everything that they have, and then you end up in a disaster. So, it's a method that, like at your scale, Bruce, and at your scale, Greg, I don't think that it would be feasible for either of you to do this in your operation. Even like you said, if you cut down 25%, Bruce, say you cut a third out and you go down to 100 from 150, you are on, when you do your very first split, your horizontal, or no, vertical split up, you are on a 6 to 8 day window, and there's no wiggle room around it. So, to do that for 100, I mean,
Yeah, when you say a 6 to 8 day window and there's no wiggle room,
absolutely
my
no
schedule,
wiggle
I
room.
have to have wiggle room. So
Yeah.
it's just not feasible for me.
So, and now you could end up running 2 queen systems, because you could shift them up, throw an excluder under the top deep, go back a couple days later, smash down some cells, leave 1 or 2, let them raise a second queen, and then you'll have a 2 queen stack that you could end up splitting or doing whatever, or you just pull the excluders and, like you do, let them have a battle royale, and whichever the strongest one is wins. And you get those massive populations, and I hope they produce. We'll see. Now, when I do my first pool, I'll be able to judge from the number of boxes on there if it was a success.
I think it's going to be. I think simply the number of bees, Brian. I remember previous years. I don't think I've ever seen the
No,
bees packed out, like covering frames like that, like I
I've,
had
I've
this year in your
never,
colonies.
I've never had boxes where they are literally that packed. And I mean, you crack on a 5 box stack, you crack your lid, and bees are coming out over the edges.
Mhm.
You take a
Oh yeah.
box, bees are coming over the edges. So it's like, and
I
now,
just I just gotta say, I love that, man. That is my favorite thing. If I open up a colony, a hive, really any time of the year, but especially like right now, and it's got like like a little circle in the in the top box, unless it's a brand new box of foundation I put on there, I'm like, oh, you guys are just lagging behind. I need to do something about this. I can't stand to see wimpy hives. I understand they got to grow into it, but once they're mature colonies, man, they got to be covering the frames. I just can't stand not to see them covering the frames. That's just me, though. Maybe I don't know. And once again, I see a lot of videos of people with anemic beehives. I'm thinking they're stacking supers on there, and they're not even covering the top of the frames.
They want,
in
yeah.
the second
Stacking
deep, I'm
supers
like,
are
oh,
never gonna get
it's
sold.
got to be packed with bees before you start
Yeah.
stacking
Yeah.
supers, or they're just not going to ever move up. And people are like, my bees won't go over the excluder. They won't go up in that second box. I'm like, well, you don't have enough. They're happy where they're at. They're not going to move up until they have that
Yeah.
bottom section full, and they have to move up.
Yep. And that
Yeah.
was the problem in my yard. Like when I was finishing up the first round, because I'm in round 2 of the Demaray. When I went over and was checking them, when I started, I think it was round 2, because you figure I've never pulled any bees away from those colonies this entire season. They haven't swarmed, and all they've been doing is growing. I ended up putting a third super on them simply for space. They did not need it because they were pulling in that much nectar. They needed it because there was so much population that it's like, I need to give them something to do. So, they're packed. I mean, I'll see. I've got another week, and then I can restart round 3, and I think that will be it. I'll probably do 3 rounds of the Demaray, and then I'll judge. So next week, Wednesday-ish, that'll be the tell, because I'm going to have to pull the stacks apart. That's the other thing. Like, it is work. I'm going to have to take that top deep, set it off to the side. When I do this Demaray, I have 2 extra hive stands in the yard. I'll pull the top deep off, set it on one hive stand, and then I set my supers over on another hive stand. So, I've got the main colony on its original stand, and then I've got boxes kind of here and there. But you figure that I'm going through, and it worked out on 3 of the 5 that I did. It worked out perfect, where when I was checking those frames in that top deep, they were just starting to throw some nectar in them, and they were almost completely empty because all that brood had emerged out. So
That's how you're supposed to time it. I'll say this, folks. If you are interested in the Demaray or kind of what Brian's doing, go check out his channel. He's just taking through step by step what he's doing. I
Yeah.
know he's got this video that he just did that's got like 25,000 views about mean bees, and that's a really cool video. But the actual meat of his channel, I think that is meat, obviously, but is what he's doing technique wise, and he walks you through, does a great job of walking you through what he's doing.
Yeah.
And kind of his plan for the year. And Brian, you're super organized, but here's what I want you to do, Brian. You got a piece of paper, or are you just going to remember this in your head?
I remember.
I want you to think about a month or 2 from now when the honey flow is winding down, and now you have like 80,000 bees in these hives. What are you going to do then? Because you want to condense them back down. But we don't talk about that now, but just think about how you're going to condense them back down, what you're going to do then. So just keep that in mind. That would be a great topic, I think, for a later video. Greg, let's move on to you. I know that your focus over the years has mostly been, obviously you do produce and sell honey, but your biggest emphasis has been making bees, queens, nukes, just growing bees and selling bees and bee equipment. But do you have any tips or tricks that you've found to really be successful to help you with honey production?
Yeah. Number 1 tip, if you want to take your learning experience of the Demaray method 1 additional step further. You want to go deep? If you want to learn it from the lovable, huggable Mr. Brian Coper of Castle Hives, then come out to the Learning Yard this June the 13th, right here at Nature's Image Farm, and ask Brian all those details. Maybe we'll talk about that, Brian. We'll talk about we'll have our honey flow conversation pertaining to our local area there. Maybe we'll dig into Demaray and all those things. I got to say, for more information, go to nature'simagefarm.com, go up to the Learning Yard tab, and we'll update that here at some point soon too. I tell you, when I think about honey in the past, if you went back into the eons of time and all the hundreds and hundreds of streams and videos where I've commented on honey, you will very likely hear me making some very unflattering comments pertaining to honey, that it's the sticky stuff that just gets in the way of making bees. And that's true. However, I have developed a appreciation for it As you start to get a grip on what it takes to kick out nukes and to do all those things, you start to see, okay, where can we stretch into some other things. I'm a little hesitant on getting into the weeds on this because I'm still trying to get my head around whatever this monstrosity of a hybrid of a thing that it seems like I've just put together, but I'm combining overwintered colony maintenance, splitting maintenance, and honey production all in the same vertical space. And it creates a 2-queen system with an overwintered colony and a spring colony on top, with all the magic happening in between. Now, I'm trying to get my head around this fully before I get into all the weeds of it, but I don't know. I know 2 queen colonies. There's nothing new under the sun. No matter what, there's nothing new under the sun. But this is not something that I've ever seen anybody do, and I think it was purely Brian talking about the Damari, and then we had a brand new customer this year talking about using nuke boxes to make a 2-queen scenario. And when I ran him through the scenarios on what to be looking for, next thing you know, the next day I'm out in my yard, and I know I just explained to the pros and the cons of a 2-queen. I'm trying to better understand. Brian is stacking them to the moon, and then I realized, man, I'm already stacked up and ready to go because I made all my splits, all of my nukes, everything in the same vertical space right on top of my overwinters over a double screen board. It was already set up, and I started trying it on 1 or 2, and I started to really like the flow of what I was doing, pun intended. I'll have a lot more to say about it once I can fully get my head around this thing. But to me, what I'm doing is I'm creating it's everything is all in one. It is a maintenance system. It's a growth system. It's a even if we grow to the point where we don't need the overwinter queen in the bottom, after I get through of pulling these supers off, I just simply am going to combine the top with the bottom, and hopefully let that young queen rule the roost. And now I'm going to be in triple deeps we're going to be stacking and building on the successes of each little sequence, but it's all happening in the same vertical space. And I like that because you'll get to see this a little bit more in the video that's hopefully going to launch tomorrow with Bruce, but you'll get to see that, a lot of folks, one of the weirdest comments that I get when folks see us at bee clubs, they come here in the shop, or they see us at a conference, is they'll say, "Whoa, you're way bigger in person than you look like on the little tiny screen." So imagine a 6'2", 275-pound Scotch-Irish hillbilly in a bee yard. The ground is a far ways away from me. And so this vertical thing I really like, because one of the things that I absolutely abhor is constantly making splits and putting them into boxes and then moving the box and then bending down and the lid and the work, all the back and forth, up and down. Like, most folks don't realize that the beekeeping industry is really moved forward by a lot of beekeepers that are, how do we say this? There's a lot of migrant labor and migrant help that does this. And so their stature is such to where the ground is way closer to them than it is for me. All this to say, I really am liking this vertical movement of things. Now, I don't know if it would work once you got past 2 or 3 or 400 colonies, maybe that it would. But to me, it's creating a little bit of a buffer. And what's really neat about it is it's literally creating these lighthouses all throughout the yards. Like, these lighthouses are popping up. Maybe, I don't know, if in my mind, I'm maybe refer to it as some kind of a lighthouse deal. I don't know. But to me, it's really neat because there are some really important key concepts going on. Number one, we have the overwintered queen who is still allowed room to grow, and she can brood up into 2 boxes, and she is nearly satisfied into the brood rotations of that because there's all the supers above. So above where she is in the brood is there is an excluder. There's 3 to 4 supers above that. Another excluder with my spring split in the top box ready to rip. And so what I like about this is how Bruce mentioned throwing a super on top of a single. I love that. I've done that. This is another way for me to do that, but in the same sense, now I can go through like Friday when I'm pulling the nukes for Saturday. I literally am just going to go into the top boxes, cherry pick out of the 10 frames the most beautiful nuke for my customer, and everything still stays put down below. If I wanted to just combine everybody at that point, I could. If I wanted to add a queen cell or made a queen on top, I could. But now I can still let that top box grow out if I wanted to, and then worry about how I'm going to combine them later if I however I choose to go with that. What I like about that is it also creates a buffer, because if I need to recombine, I can. If I want to then grow, I could be taking this top box off and putting it onto a 4-way pallet at dusk, loading up 4-way pallets on the truck, taking them to another out yard, letting it rip, and then everything below is nothing changes. It's still the overwinter colony with supers above. It gives me a lot of flexibility, and it gives me some options, which I really like. But one of the greatest things about this is it's creating a buffer in time. I don't need to go visit it every 6 to 8 days if I don't want to. Every 7 to 14, just make sure that they've got room. If I need to slip another box in there, great. Now, eventually, where the risk would be really is going to be the very top box on the very top, because once that 10 frame is full, now what are you going to do? You can't start adding double deeps on top of this thing, and you've got, two deeps of a brood box down below, 4 to 5 supers above, and then 2 deeps. I mean, that's ridiculous. Now, that's closer to my height and me grabbing stuff and moving it down. But I am getting to the point where I'm trying to be careful and not do dumb things like lift a 90-pound box, that's 5.5, 6 feet off the ground, and then twist and then bend and then put it down. So right now, I know I'm kind of rambling a little bit as I'm talking through what it is that I think that I'm seeing. But I'm really liking so far. In the past, it's literally been try to get things that are in double deeps, fat and happy enough to where I can get a super on. And most of the time, we're not putting double supers on most of the time here. There's just our flows they don't quite seem to be that strong. But I will get one super going, and then we'll bring those up and then under super. And then that's the program. Then we'll go through and strip the top supers, get those spun out, put those wet supers back on underneath, because in about that same time frame, we're just kind of in this 1 to 2 super realm. And the last couple of years have been really poor. If it's for us, it's been a blessing if we can get a 5-gallon bucket off a colony, like we're doing something. That's not ideal for most parts of the country where you want to be able to pull 90, 120 pounds of honey. We haven't seen that for a few years. So I'm liking what I'm seeing with this, whatever this monstrosity of a lighthouse sequence is, because I can take singles, put them on top. I can grow stuff out. I can consolidate stuff. I've got a buffer. Now, are they going to make 90 pounds of honey per vertical space or more? Stay tuned and we'll see. But that's where my method is now, Bruce. I would love to be able to get to nothing but deeps. I would love to get rid of mediums altogether, have nothing to do with mediums ever again, and just have all deeps. But I don't know physically how long I could do that. And then as my help is maturing, they're not going to be able to be slinging 90-pounders around for a couple more years. Jake can, a couple of us can. So that's where mediums come right back into play. So the more things change, the more they stay the same, Bruce. That's what it seems to be.
Well, I personally, I understand the value of having all deeps or all mediums for that matter, but they're just so heavy, and I can do it for a few of them, but it's just so much better to have. I mean, a packed out 10 frame box with 8 or 9 frames in there, evenly spaced, that are those fat frames of honey. Those things weigh 35, 40 pounds, maybe more. Yep. And then you get a deep and it's going to be 70, 80 pounds probably. If you decrease the number of frames in there, I imagine it's even more than that. And so it's just much easier for me to be able to manage the medium boxes. And so it does create more extraction that has to happen, more frames that have to be uncapped, and more, loading up the extractors and everything. But I do prefer the mediums for honey. But so as far as my Zach says he did that on about 600 hives. I
Nice.
actually have one that I'm doing that with right now, Greg. I kind of thought of that principle too, about the same time you did. I do have an upper entrance on my top box. I just put a good sized, probably about a half 3/4 inch stick kind of under one of the corners, so the bees can get in and out of the top box as well. I've got a deep on the bottom with the queen in there. Got 3 or 4 supers, and then a queen excluder, and then the box on top with the queen in there. I kind of had a starter finisher. I was trying the cloak board method, didn't work that great, and I had just a couple of cells that took. It was just a disaster. I didn't do a video on it because I want to figure it out before I do videos on it. But anyway, so when all was said and done, I just said, "What the heck? I'm just gonna." The virgins were in the little cages, the easy peasy cages. I had 2 virgins in there in that top box. I just let them go ahead and develop at the cage. I just released them in there in that top box and over Queen Excluder, and just said, "You girls just do your whatever happens, happens." And they may have even been, that might have even been, I think it was a double screen board. I can't remember exactly whatever it was. Well, they got mated. One of them did. And then I went down to the bottom box to see what was going on. And apparently they either swarmed or requeened themselves because there were just a few eggs down there. So I set that joker up and I just said, "Okay, girls, go to work." And so that's an experiment for me. I'm just going to see what happens with it. But it's the exact same thing you're talking about, basically. Maybe a little different setup, but very similar. But as far as honey for me, first of all, I think that we're really blessed right here in this area to have. Now it is raining. I just looked at my phone. It's raining outside right now. And I looked at my phone and we have rain in the forecast like every day for the next 10 days or whatever it is.
Now I got to look, Bruce.
We're talking 80%, 75%, 80%, 70, 80, 60, 65, 75, 70 through next Friday. So I don't know what kind of honey crop we're going to get, because if it's raining every single day.
There.
Yeah, I think we've flipped. A few weeks ago we were like that, and you guys were raining. Now we're flipped. So, but it's right in the middle of our best honey flow. But the first key is you have to have good nectar coming in. I mean, that's number one. Make honey, you got to have nectar. So some people do everything right. They get everything set up, and I hope that doesn't happen here this year. It possibly could here with this tallow right here in this area, because right now the tallow is blooming and we got nothing but rain, it seems like. So that's number one. Number two, I think you need to have large numbers of bees, whatever method you use to get them that way. Whether it's a single deep packed out, queen excluding, you do single brood management. Whether it's a double deep that's packed out with bees, you got to have population, and that's number two. And then once you have those things, you want it to be kind of peaking. You want to have a lot of bees in there right as the honey flow is beginning, or the nectar flow is beginning. Once you have those two things, the box is full of bees, overflowing with bees, and then you have a good nectar flow. I guess at that point in time, the key is how do you manipulate or manage your colonies to be able to reach maximum honey production, which is kind of what the topic is tonight. Yeah. And so you guys are both of those ideas are great. Once again, talking about how you get that population up to bring honey in. So once I'm at that point, this usually happens in the spring for me when I'm kind of trying to capture some of that spring flow. I actually start putting honey supers on my colonies whenever I feel like I can. If the population is good, I think it's good, but I don't put a queen excluder in there to start off with. I think DC, or maybe it was somebody asked the question. Let me see if I can find it here. We can just go ahead and talk about it. Let's see. It was, oh yeah, DC said right here, he says, "So what are your techniques you use to get them to move up?" Well, first of all, you got to have enough bees for them to want to move up. And then you need to be able to figure out how to get them up in those supers. And so I personally just put them on without queen excluders to start off with. It does add a step. Now, lately I've been just slapping queen excluders on and putting the boxes over because I just didn't have time to go back and forth. But when I get them out early enough, this works well. I'll let the bees get up in those supers and start working them, cleaning them up, getting them ready, polishing the cells, building the wax out, getting it ready to go. And so they're used to being up there. And then once they've been up there a little while, the danger with this is, especially in the spring when they're building up, that queen will go up there and start to lay sometimes, especially like in the bottom super or whatever. And so some people don't want eggs brood ever in their honey supers, and it's best if you can keep them out of there. But it doesn't bother me too bad. You do run a greater risk of hive wax moth damage when you're trying to store your supers if they've had brood in there. But What I do is I'll let them, even if there's a little bit of brood in there, it's okay for me. I try to go in about 3 weeks before I pull my first honey, or even for whenever it is. Once the bees are working it good, you can go do this. Make sure the queen's below the queen excluder, and shake the bees out, or whatever you got to do. Just make sure she's down below. Put the queen excluder in, then stack the boxes back up on there. However many you have, 1 super, 2 supers, whatever it is, and then the bees have been up there, so they'll more readily move up through that excluder because they've been up there working it. They want to get back up there again. So that's one technique. I think one thing that really helps. And so I like it's ideal to just maybe put 1 super on to start off with, let them work it and get up there. But sometimes you can stack a couple if they're super crammed, crammed out with bees. And I like to take whenever I do that, if I just have 1 box over an excluder, I like to personally make sure there's an upper entrance. What I do with that is I'll put a stick in a corner if it's just 1 box, or some people may have boxes with a hole in them or an upper entrance of some sort, but I like to have an upper entrance. And I don't know why. Maybe it's just theory of Bruce here, but it seems to me like if you have an excluder on a colony and you have some sort of upper opening, whether they use it as an entrance, whether they use it as an entrance or for ventilation, to me, they just seem to do better. It's just, they just seem to do better at getting up there and putting honey in there. I don't see a lot of activity of bees flying in and out of those upper entrances when I do that, but the bees are always up there guarding it, and they seem as happy as they can be. So I really like to do that. My boxes are pretty basic. I don't have the inner covers. I don't have upper entrance, shims or anything like that. I just put a stick in the corner. Some of my boxes are rotting a little bit. If there's extra entrances, I use that. That's fine. But I like to have that. Another reason to do that is if there's any drone brood that has been laid up there while you didn't have your queen excluder on, they need to have room to be able to get out of there. Those drones will get trapped up there and they can't get out. And you'll open that if you let that happen. Sometimes you'll lift that super up and you'll see in the queen excluder where drones get caught in there and they die because they try to get through the excluders and they can't. They try to get out of there. So you need to have some sort of an entrance for drones to get in and out if they decide they want to do that. Mm-hmm. The other thing is when I put my second box on, we've talked about that a little bit tonight already. I do stagger it forward. I don't worry about a stick in the upper end of the lid anymore because I just take that second box. I move the whole thing forward. So there's about 1/4 of an inch in the back that's open. And now there's been a couple of questions in here. Number one would be a question you might have would be, does rain get in there? The bees guard that really heavily, and they just are up there working. They don't ever seem agitated. They just are up there just enjoying it. Brian, I think you've probably seen that. I don't know if you've done it or not, Greg, but they love it. They love that little entrance up there, that little, when you slide it forward, that little stagger box. They love that. And so, and I've noticed, I was watching the other day pretty close, and there were some bees kind of flying in and out there a little bit, but it's not a huge number. Most of the bees are coming in the regular entrance in the front, but they just seem to love it for some reason. You will see bees up there doing the washboarding thing that they do. You'll see them fanning, which I think is valuable because that may help them dry that honey out better. You'll see them up there cleaning and just working, and they guard it. I think they are guarding it up there, but for some reason it seems to work. I learned that technique from Gus Mitchell did it. A couple of other people did it that I learned it from, and I started doing it, and it absolutely works well. At least I believe it does. Once I go, I'll have the first super on. I'll stagger the second box up. I'll put another box in line with that one. If I go a fourth box, then I stagger it back and kind of equalize it. And so, if the fourth box up will come back, I'll stagger the front a little bit. So I just kind of every couple of boxes, I stagger it however high I go. And it seems to work well that way. Now, the concern about water getting in the hive is that if it happens, it's minimal. The bees guard it. They keep it out there. And it's only a tiny little crack. And so odds are it's not going to damage anything. It doesn't seem to be any issues that I've seen anyway. Secondly,
it'll just run down the box if it,
Yeah, and it may get in there and it may run down the box. But I think the bees just, like they form a barrier in the front of the hive when they beard. I think they do the same thing up there if it rains. I don't know what they do, but I do know that I've never had issues with there being any water damage in the hive because that happens. But the amount of rain we're having this year, who knows? But I haven't had an issue. The other thing is,
I've never had an issue. When I do that, I've never run into an issue.
Yeah, I think it works really good.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some tips that I would have for you. And when I started doing that, I found that the bees do great with queen excluders on. They do just fine. Some people will say that queen excluders are honey excluders, and I seem to have thought that was the case before I started staggering my boxes. But maybe it's just in my mind, but it seems like when you do it this way, it doesn't matter a bit. It seems to work really well. So it's that's been my experience. And I have a lot of colonies that have 2, 3, 4 supers on them, and some maybe even 5. I don't know if I have any with 5 on them right now or not, but they will fill them up. And here's a question I have for you guys. I know there's always the question of over supering or under supering, and I was thinking about this because when you go into a hive in a wall, just thinking about how they build the comb in the hive where the honey is the honey in the top of a wild colony in a wall or in a tree? Is the honey in the top or in the bottom of that comb? Have you guys, what have you found, or what do you think?
I don't know.
The limited experience that I've got with it is the honey seems to be up towards the top, and the brood seems to be closer to the entrance. So they're kind of putting that up furthest away.
It's kind of like when our hives, they have that dome. I've noticed that, and I haven't done a lot of cutouts either. So if Yappy's in here, or anybody that does cutouts, I know Lisa does some cutouts. There's several people in here that might do cutouts, but my experience is they kind of do the same thing in a tree or a wall that they do in the hive. They kind of have a dome, and it'll be mostly up top and on the edges. If I'm mistaken on that, let me know. But my thoughts are when you're stacking honey supers up, and I've kind of experienced this a little bit. I've thought about this a little bit the last few days. If you under super, theoretically you think, well, the bees will just fill that bottom box up first because it's lower, right? If you stack 3 boxes up, or if you have a box of honey, anyway, if you under super, let me start over. It seems to me like bees go up and they fill the top box up first. It just seems like, maybe not in every case, but to me, over supering works just fine. And I know that, like, when I put comb honey in there, I'm trying to build out comb honey or do anything kind of different. If I under super, it seems like sometimes they don't cap it. They might put honey in, they may not cap it as much as some of the upper boxes. And so that's something I got to think about a little bit more and like observe and really see what I think. Over supering, under supering, I think both work well. But in my opinion, if the philosophy is that you put it underneath, they're going to fill it up faster, I'm not sure that's always the case. I do believe though, if you're moving your box of capped honey to the top, obviously they'll fill up the bottom box first because the top box is already full. But if you know what I'm trying to say, is it really faster or better to do one or the other? I don't know. I don't know if it's faster or not. I know a lot of people use both methods with success, but I don't know what you guys think about that. Over supering versus under supering. We've addressed this before. What do you guys think?
Brian, go ahead.
I always under super. It's always worked really well. You know, I've never had a problem with it. You know,
it's good too, because then if you put your capped honey on the top, then it's easy to take off when you harvest.
Yep.
So if you under super that way, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Thoughts, Greg?
Hands down, period. I absolutely, the answer is yes. Seriously though, I am absolutely convinced that under supering is the better way for us to go. A couple things that I was thinking about as you were talking. Number one, about the honey excluder. I think what is hard for Bruce to probably get his head around is that he is literally living in the land of milk and honey when it comes to nectar flows. The ferocity of the flows that you get is not standard for most folks in the country. And so in our neck of the woods, the ferocity of the flow dictates their relationship with an excluder. Most of the time, if you've got brand new drawn comb, you cannot have an excluder on there. You got to have them come up, draw that out, and start to do something with it, shake them out, and then put an excluder in. If you've got drawn comb, even with some honey residue from last year, the bees, and I've seen it here, even if the bees are boiling over, and I mean carpets of bees where you look down and it looks like you're looking into a sloppy Joe pot where it's just all that going on. If I put an excluder on and then drawn comb, they still don't necessarily want to go up if we're not on a heavy flow. If we are building up or getting on a heavy flow, I think they will crawl right through an excluder and draw out fresh comb. But we don't really get ferocious flows, I don't think, like Bruce does. So I think that's the difference. If you do put that excluder on too soon, that's when it becomes a honey excluder. I have seen that time and time again. I have tested extensively a metal excluder versus a plastic excluder. And let me tell you, not all plastic excluders are created equally. They're not, especially the really cheap ones. They have very sharp edges, and dimensionally, they're not quite the same. I prefer the plastic excluders that we have here, which is from Nick. They're in Motherlode. And I prefer, I really like stainless metal excluders. They're a lot more maintenance. You got to be a lot more careful with them. But there's a lot more ventilation, I think, that happens throughout the colony with the metal excluders, number one. Number two, there's a lot more area for the bees to get through than there is an excluder. A plastic excluder does choke down the traffic flow through there, but they still work beautifully. If you're just got to rip them on, put them on, and they're more disposable, then I think the right kind of plastic, I think you can do really well on. But the type of flow is really important for me because we don't have ferocious flows. What I like to do is get the box that they're working on, 70, 80% of the way done. And then I'm going to pull that box up and then slip another box underneath. That way, my next turn through there, whether it's 5 or 7 days later, I can almost bank on, I can go through everything and just strip the tops off and they can still cruise. And sometimes they're not going to fill a second box out, depending on how the flow sequence is. Maybe they will, but the time they get around to filling out that now single box that's on there, gives me time to go through and extract everything. And then I'll come back and pull that and do the same routine. That seems to work out really well. The exception would be if you've got these knuckle-headed colonies where these queens, they just want to lay brood to the moon. And those are the ones that if you're just in a single and you're trying to like force a single super of honey and you're just throwing a medium on top, you got to be really careful because as soon as you put that box on there, she's up in there and she's got 2 or 3 frames laid up. What I have experienced, this is where an excluder becomes a problem, because what I have found, if we put eggs on frames above an excluder, they will treat that like a swarm cell, and they will start drawing out cells above the excluder. So for me, it gets to be a little bit tricky. A lot of times those knuckleheads, I'll leave them with a story and a half. And then I'll end up putting another medium on top, hoping that they're satisfied with the brood nest. Probably 70, 80% of the time, they'll use that second medium now for honey and start to go up with no need for an excluder. I like that. The only problem with that is it's hard to sometimes satiate the queen's need for the brood nest. And sometimes she can just keep going right up. And now you've got a deep and now 2 mediums with brood in it. And then you're done. I mean, you're cooked, because what are you going to do? You're not making any honey now at all because they're brooding up in your supers. By the time that she's brooding up so expansively in that colony, by the time that those bees are now going to be old enough to bring in any kind of forage, in my neck of the woods, the flow's over. So now you've just built up a brood scenario that's in a deep and 2 mediums. And to me, that's the worst thing that you could possibly do, because now I've just tied up medium boxes and medium cone for brood. That serves me zero purpose. If my brood's not in deeps, I nearly don't want it. So for me, I like to under super when at all possible. It makes it way more efficient just to go through the yard, strip the tops. As you're stripping the tops off with a fume board, I'm looking into the box underneath quickly. And if that one's ready to rip, then cool. We'll fume board that one too, and then they'll both go. But it gives me a buffer on not knowing how intense the flow is going to go. That's my preferred method when at all possible. But you got to get your ducks in a row on getting the bees built up and having enough brood, 2 to 3 weeks earlier, that's hatching out, that's mature enough now and ready to go out and gather and bring it back.
Man, that's awesome. This topic is really kind of blown up this evening. We've got several folks with some great comments in here.
Mm-hmm.
But I and Zach kind of said it best. Zach just said he usually under supers, but he's had 2 hives side by side that he over super and under super and about the same. So I really don't know if it matters that much, to be honest.
What's easier for the beekeeper?
I think it works. I mostly overstack, over super, but when I'm preparing for my spring honey harvest, I do going to move all the honey to the top. So when I'll go out there like a week before and move all the honey boxes I'm going to take for that spring harvest to the top. So I can just take the boxes off and not have to go to and wade through everything. And that works really well. But typically I just put the boxes on top and just roll with it. It tends to work pretty well. When I come back with the wet supers after harvesting and put them back on, just put them on the top and they fill them up. I'm worried about all this rain though. It's right in the middle of our best flow. So it's got me worried this year.
One quick thought. If we could measure every ounce of energy expended, like if we could, all right, then I would say run a test and see which one has the greatest yield with the least amount of energy. Not whether the bees will do it, because I think what Zach is saying, what we are seeing is the bees will do it. But think about this. Here's where my mind goes. If I have the opportunity to pull a 70 or 80% capacity super up and then slip an empty one underneath, I've only lifted one super that's 70 to 80% capacity once to pull it up and to slip the younger one underneath. So if you could put an energy expenditure value on that, what does it look like if you have a 100% capped full box on the bottom that you're putting a medium on top of that's not ready to harvest yet? If you're over supering, when you come back that next revolution to your yard, now you've got to pull this top one off, which is going to be probably 30 or 40%, and you still have to pull off the one that's now 100%. You pull off the one that's 100% off, and then put the one that's however far grown back down on the colony. Like if you could measure the elbow grease that it takes to do option A and option B, to me, how I would start to kind of dictate, well, what do I do? Because if you find it took you 40% less elbow grease to pull 2 supers long term, you know how far that stacks up over 20 colonies, let alone 200.
That's true. We typically, the spring is where some of this gets a little tricky. My spring harvest, the summer harvest, we just pull everything above the excluder. So we just take it all.
It's all ripped. Yeah.
Yep. So that's kind of, no matter where they're stacked, what order, and they're not always fully capped, but we do the shake test. And if they're too wet, which they usually aren't, but if they are, we'll just set them out, maybe let the bees clean them up. But I got to get everything off.
Oh, I see. Just everything.
And the summer we just take it all, everything above the excluder, and the excluder all comes off, and we pull those supers in June.
Hey, Brian, this guy's living in the promised land down there. I mean,
I don't know if it's going to be that way this year.
Supers that are not quite done yet, or we're just like, come on, ladies, you can do it. Just 4 more days. Just you can do it. You can do it. And then next thing you know, it's September and they didn't do it. You're thinking, well, now what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Let's address some of these comments here. We appreciate everyone being in here tonight. It's been awesome. Great comments. And I think it's a topic everyone is in the middle of right now. Either you're in the middle of your honey flow or you're just right on the precipice of it. So let's just kind of roll through just these comments and everything. And Brian, I appreciate the super chat. Honey 2026, hashtag show me the honeys, hashtag stream team. Appreciate it, fellas. That means a lot. Any of these super chats, super stickers, they really help. Biggest reason they do help the channel, but they also help keep us motivated to keep going, because sometimes it gets a little monotonous or a little bit tough to do it. Greg says, friends, don't let friends paint bee boxes. I wonder where that must be the Endura Hive theme there. Appreciate it, Greg. Thanks for super chat again. Let's drop down here. We got question for Bruce. In my area, we have a lot of mimosa trees. Is there a flow off of this? Central South Carolina. I'm not sure, Robert, if there is. I think there might be a little bit. I don't know though. I've heard that there is. I've heard the honey is not very good, but that I don't know if that's true because I have mimosa trees all over the place here. They're blooming everywhere, and the honey is great. And I think most of the honey that comes in is tallow, but they may get some of it off of those mimosa trees as well. And so I'm not sure how to answer that question. It may depend on the year as well. And but yeah, I guess you can see what your supers, if they fill up with the mimosa trees blooming, maybe they are having an impact. That would be a great experiment to do. Let's see. Here's a question about when we stagger them. Don't the bees, the wasp, the rubber bees, maybe bumblebees. I'm not sure what that
Probably
is.
robber bees.
Robber bees, and the wasps get into the box when you stagger it. That will be a problem later in the year if you have them. If you continue to leave them staggered when the flow is not going, then you can deal with robber bees. And by that point in time, though, I don't plan on having boxes stacked up anymore. By then, I've got everything sealed up better, and they won't have that opportunity during this time of year when the flow is coming in, or even like we had a little break between the privet and the tallow where we were about a week or two there, a little dearth, and they still don't really rob that much because the population is so huge that they just can't. But in the summertime, maybe here in this area, July, August, if you have boxes staggered like this and the populations do begin to decrease there because we're in a dearth, they will absolutely rob you out if you're not careful. So that is a great question. You do have to be mindful of the situation. I don't stagger them, in the wintertime. I usually have them in 2 boxes during the wintertime. And I don't stagger them until there's a flow kicking in. The bees are really built up, their population strong, and they can defend it. I don't like to have stagger boxes during a dearth and weak colonies or during a non-flow time. It just doesn't work well. That's a great comment. Let's see. DC here has a question. He says, so what are some of the techniques you can use to get them? We talked about moving up already, kind of some different things we try. Let's see. Brian Lee.
The Brian Lee.
Shady Road Farm down near Tallahassee. Brian is down there in Tallahassee now. And $20 thanks. Gas money for your upcoming honey harvest. I appreciate it. Brian.
If you guys want to see more of Brian Lee, like the absolute coolest honey or beekeeping, the coolest Endura Hive wax tipped equipment haul vehicle, if you got to check out the video tomorrow. It's just super cool.
Yeah, he's got him a pretty cool car to haul stuff around in, or should I say truck. But yeah, thanks, Brian, for that. And Brian, hopefully Brian can come and help me with the honey harvest this year. He's threatening to do it. I'm going to take him up on it if he will. That'll be awesome. Tallahassee is pretty close to here, so it's not that far. We got, hello everyone, my second year of beekeeping, and it amazes me how much everything changes in no time. I still have a ton to learn, and also thank you, Nature's Image Farm, for the queens. The queens are doing great. Yeah. James
Rudder. Good to see you, Mr. Rudder. Yep, great guy.
That is he says everything changes in no time. You can say that again. We were 2 weeks ago. We were like in a drought here for a month, and now it has done nothing but rain for. So, I don't know. You just got to roll with it and do the best you can. Let's see. This is a good question and comment about undersupering versus oversupering. It says the foragers. This is from Country Roads Bees. The foragers hand off their stores, correct? So would be closer to the store and easier for the bees, right? That is possibly true. That makes sense. One thing though, when Randy Oliver was on here a while back, I think we were on Brian's channel, maybe. I think it was, and I said, well, that makes sense. And he said something. What do you say, Brian? When I said that makes sense, he's like, yeah, but
I forget.
Just because it makes sense doesn't mean that it's how it is, and that doesn't mean it's true. And he's found, I think, in research, we don't always know. But yes, that does make sense logically, that if it's closer, it's easier. I am not sure of all the physiology and biology of the bees as far as the actual transfer of honey, how they hand them off, and how many bees get it handed off, and what they do. I do know typically, though, that when you look in a hive, especially if it doesn't have a queen excluder, it's like a double deep. When we pull honey off, that hive has most of the honey is up on the top and around the edges. And so they do move it up to the top and kind of work down from there, but I'm not sure what their actual process is in that. So that is a great comment and a great observation. And that may very well be why that would be a good way to do it.
This is
So
the stream team beekeeping chat, not the way to be with Fred Dunn. That's a Fred Dunn question. That's a
yes,
Fred Dunn.
that would be a great Fred Dunn question. Absolutely. So you guys, I'm not trying to answer all these questions. You guys pipe in. Go
ahead,
I'm
Bruce.
just kind of. Grammy says Lisa here in this area. She lives real close to me here, about 20 miles north of here. But she says typically the brood nest. She does removals as well. Typically the brood nest is in the middle, surrounded by pollen and bee bread, then honey. They store it as close to the brood as possible for ease of feeding. Excess they will store wherever there are empty cells. Greg, have you noticed? What have you noticed about the location of pollen and honey during a really good time of the year when the flow's coming in? Do they always store it? Well, I know what Lisa says here is true, but what have you noticed by that about location of pollen? Is the brood always in a perfectly clean sheet on a frame during a
No.
good flow?
No, I guess we have to define perfectly good flow again. It's going to be different. There will be times where we'll get into a nectar dearth and we'll have sheets of pollen, like literally frames of nothing but pollen. And we'll have times where the brood nest is actually pollen bound. It's a nightmare. And that usually happens late in the season, late summer, early fall, drought, dearth type of weathers where the plants are just putting out reproductive pollen and the bees are going to town. What I typically see is, and I hate to say it like this because it's such a broad stroke, but what I see a lot of times is the bees will make slabs of brood on brand new frames and foundation all the time. Like on package bees, on a nuke, on your splits, when you throw them brand new frames and foundation, I see them make that first round or two of use of the frame. A lot of times is just nothing but brood. But then what I see what happens as those frames mature and the brood starts to hatch in the ways that they do, the top areas start to get a little bit more concentrated with bee bread and then surplus nectar. In the lower part of the colony, in the center of the colony is where typically I'm going to see slabs of brood. But then when you get outside a little bit and you go up, then that profile changes. And then you'll start to see the arches of food resources on the peripheral of where the brood is. Eventually you get to the top and you'll have, like if you're in two deeps, you'll get to, halfway to 3/4 up in that second deep, the arch starts. And then from there, a lot of times you don't even need excluders because everything from that band up most of the time ends up being honey. So there's no absolutes. I don't see it consistently all the time. It does seem to vary on the flows. And it also, one thing that I have seen is that brand new foundation has a little bit different of a purpose for them for the first couple rotations in the brood chamber than it does with drawn comb.
Brian, any thoughts on that?
I'm spaced out listening to all this.
I would say I didn't really realize this until probably a year or two ago. I watched a video from Randy Oliver about how to read a frame. And he talked specifically about, he actually had really good, it was one of his presentations, I think. I'm not sure exactly where I saw it, but he actually had a picture of a beautiful frame of brood up there. And he talks about how the importance of the flow. And when the bees are building up, when they're happily building up, when there is a good nectar, when the resources are just right, they're balanced properly, they will actually put pollen, like 2 or 3 little, you'll see little cells with pollen in them right in the middle of the brood where they're laying eggs, and you'll see it. You'll see the honey right there on it, and they'll kind of mix it in a little bit. The reason being because it's right there close where they can feed the larvae as they need to. And so that's not a bad sign. If you see some little cells of pollen in the middle of your brood, that's not a bad thing at all. That actually means the bees are probably building up. It's an ideal time. I would imagine as the dearth begins or as different things happen, they'll clean those out and put brood in there, or they'll do different things. But it's just a beautiful thing when you see that right balance of everything in the hive. You don't want to see all pollen, all honey, or all, perfectly. You kind of want to see that mixture of things. And so very interesting stuff from Randy Oliver there that I noticed when he was talking about that. So like Lisa says, they do put the resources right where they need them to be able to be the most efficient they can possibly be. And Greg, to your point with the pollen frames, the bees work and they bring in the food. If it's out there, they bring it in, and they got to find a place to put it. And so they just, whether they need it or not, they'll stick it in there, and it can be aggravating sometimes. David Saker's Dancing Bees. Does it do any good to have an entrance hole in the super? I think it would. It's just the same principle. You can have a hole, like you could drill a little small hole in the super, or you could just stagger them, or you could put a stick under the lid. I've seen people that drill like a 3/4 inch hole to an inch hole, and probably a 3/4 inch hole in the front of their hives, and in every super they've got that, and I think it works just fine. But I personally just stagger them a little bit.
I'm going to have to swing by my yard tomorrow and take a short little, I could even take a couple pictures and just post them of the stronger colonies that I have, how they're protecting that little opening.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Oh.
I've got in the video that I'm going to show that it's going to be dropping in the next few days as soon as I can get it finished up. It has I talk about that pretty significantly as well. I show an example of that too. It's just a beautiful thing. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
They just love it. Comment here, for metal excluders. This is from Tom. They are easier on the bees to squeeze through. I just have a couple of metal ones. The main reason I have mostly plastic is one reason is just expense. They're way more, metal ones are way more expensive. And the bees seem to do just fine with the plastic ones. I have also seen a few metal ones where they get bent just a little bit, and it provides a place for that queen to get up through there. So you got to be real careful. Check them really closely. Really, you should check any queen excluder closely because the plastic ones can split too. But those metal ones, they do, if you're not super careful with them, or if you don't observe them, they might bend even just a fraction of an inch, and that queen can get up through there into your honey super. So just check them real closely if you put them on. But they are more durable, but they do bend, and so that's one thing is one disadvantage. But I think metal probably are higher quality, but most of mine are plastic. Let's see here. Tom also says, once the bees start stacking nectar in all the combs on the first super, I pull the excluders off. That's not a bad strategy. Greg, you talked about that a little bit earlier.
Yeah, there's no place unless they get hungry and start eating out of that first box. There's no place for her to go once that first box has nectar in it.
They say that the queen won't cross over the honey,
she will.
And that is mostly true. However, I will say that years ago, I was pulling honey one day. I think I was pulling honey. I don't know if I was pulling honey or if I was just checking the bees, but I had these. This was before I really used queen excluders much at all. I pulled the lid off of that thing, and the queen was on the lid, and it probably had 2 supers of honey right underneath the lid, just packed out capped honey. So she was up there doing something. I'm not sure what she was doing, but she was up there. But that is rare. Normally they stay below the honey.
Typically those are Amish queens, Bruce.
Is that what they are?
Yeah, they're on a Rumspringer.
All right.
Getting late. I'll be here all night.
DC says, I've seen beekeepers put an upper entrance on their honey super, put a disc on it, even closed it, still vent them, help them dry the honey. I think it does make a difference, and that's all the same principle. Just let them ventilate, I
think it depends what kind of bees you have, because I mean, back in the day, I'm cringing when I hear that, because the number of 3/4 inch holes and entrance dials that I drilled and fixed to every single box. Because think about it, if you're just going to designate one box, I mean,
sure, yeah,
you're never going to have it. So then you end up doing on every single box. And what I end up finding is that the bees would, if I just left the holes open, eventually it would propolis the whole entire hole closed. Or if you just left it on vent, they propolis the vents. Now, a lot of that could just be due to heavier in more of the Carney Caucasian line. But for me, that's like the sequence that we're working on, whatever this thing is. The double screen board that served as the splitting apparatus. For me, I just flip it over on top of the colony with the entrance on top. So now the bottom entrance is on the top of
that's stack. A great idea.
Now, so it's right there. So they can do the whole entire thing. And then my migratory lid just fits right on top. And
almost like an inner cover.
Like crazy. It's exactly. Absolutely. It's like an inner cover for your migratory with the top entrance. And for whatever reason, they go bonkers going through there. And I like that though too, because you think about it, at least in our scenario, if you're on 4-way pallets with a fixed entrance, if you got a 4 or a 5-inch entrance, if you don't have that top entrance and you've got 2 brood boxes down below and 1 or 2 brood boxes above in this scenario, that is a lot of activity on that landing board, and that's congesting the airflow coming in through the colony. So in this scenario, when it's that many bees, then I think I do like the top entrance seems to help. But I'll here in another month, I'm going to know for sure whether or not I like this thing or whether it was just a massive waste of time. We'll see.
Well, it's always great. You might be coming. Maybe they'll call it the Burns method, the Desmarais method.
Great, and then Uncle David will get all the credit.
Oh, they could call it what could they call it? Call it the Nature's Image Farm method. Originated on the Greg Burns farm up in Hopewell, Ohio, the Nature's Image Farm.
There's nothing new. There's nothing new under the sun. This is new to me. I've never seen this particular thing put together.
People have tried everything. Probably.
There's nothing new under the sun.
Grammy says she's just kind of also Oh wait, I missed it. Anyway, she said basically it's the same principle as drilling. It's the same principle as a stick or staggering your boxes. DC says, well, we appreciate DC being in here. He's always participates so much in comments and has such a great support for the community. But he says, once you have a good honey dome, the queen tends not to want to cross. So we talked about that already a little bit. That's true. This is a comment that I'm guessing that
how many queen excluders
local Destin Honey does not believe in queen excluders. He says
beekeepers should have to do cutout.
How many queen excluders do you ever have found in a cutout? Oh, beekeepers should have to do cutout. That's true. Like the bees don't have queen excluders in the cutouts. That is a true point. So Brian, any thoughts on that?
I run excluders because I run singles. So I just in my outfit, for my style, I have to run excluders.
Yeah, makes sense.
Great. Thoughts, Greg?
I run queen excluders because spinning out brood and extractors and bottling that doesn't make as much money as honey does in the bottle. So that's why I use excluders.
Yeah, I run them because I don't like to pick through frames when I'm pulling my honey supers and try to find the brood and move the fruit brood out of there and everything. And this year I got the queen excluders in late on some of my colonies, and so I was dealing with that when we were pulling the spring harvest, and it was a pain because we had brood in some of the supers, so I had to kind of mix and match and move them around, and I just don't like that. So obviously bees don't run queen excluders in the tree or in the wall when they're in there. That's a given. However, when we put them in a box and we manage those bees, we are their stewards, and we do all kinds of things to manage and manipulate them. First of all, I feel like we're giving them a home. So, there's probably 150 colonies that I have approximately that wouldn't exist right now if I didn't have my bees. So I feel like it's kind of a give and take. Like we kind of give them a place to live and help manage and manipulate them, and then they do provide for us the things that the goals that we want to achieve, and we do all kinds of different things. There are a lot of people that don't use excluders. I used to not use excluders, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I personally use them simply it's for convenience for me to be able to pull honey and go and get the job done. And the bees do just fine either way, with or without. Just one of those, just my opinion kind of a thing.
It's a good comment though, because it is important to see bees in their unmanaged environment, because then you really get a really good idea of
absolutely
the orchestration inside of the colony and how everything is put together. It's very. I think it's a great idea to do that.
I think doing cutouts gives you an absolutely awesome view of what bees do in nature. It really does. If you really want to learn about bees and what they do on their own, cutouts are the best way to do that. You can see the ways they run the comb in the hive, how they build from the middle out or from the back forward or whatever they do. You can just kind of see the different ways they do it. And it is extremely interesting. I've done a very few cutouts. I've helped people do cutouts before a few times, and it is extremely interesting and cool, but I just don't have the time to do it. My biggest concern with cutouts is just my carpentry skills are not great. And I don't want to mess somebody's house up. That's my biggest concern with it. Plus, it's a time
It's a
thing for me.
liability. Yeah. The juice is not worth the squeeze, in my opinion, but not if
Yeah.
it's a, financial venture, unless you're really tagged into insurance claims and all those kind of things.
Bracken he checked in here. 999 super chat. Thanks, Bracken. 3 studs of beekeeping world. Thanks for all you do. Thanks,
Well,
Bracken.
Bracken, it takes one to know one, bud.
Absolutely. And that is true. Bracken is
Dude.
one of the coolest dudes out
Good
there,
dude.
man. If you've never seen Barker's Bees and Honey on YouTube, Bracken is out in Utah. He's a young guy that's just living the dream. He's building his bee operation right now. There's a few young people out there doing it and kind of showing what they're doing. I would say Emily Pezinski is another one. BeeFit Beekeeping, Bracken's doing it. And there are a few young folks out there on YouTube right now that are building their. What's that?
Brian at Castle Hives. Don't forget, he's another young guy.
Exactly. But they are building, going, basically commercial, and it's worth a watch to check them out. And as far as the honey harvest comes, Brian Lee says, yes, sir, I'll be there as long as we don't have to harvest from the Ozark apiary. Brian, the Ozark apiary is no more unless you're harvesting Lisa's honey. And so you don't have to worry about that. We're good from there. Well, guys, let's run around the horn here. It's been a great conversation tonight. We appreciate all the participation in the comment section tonight. So many great comments and ideas. And man, it's just so cool to just see what you guys have to say and all the thoughts you have. And hopefully we've been able to share some information tonight from us and from the people in the comments that'll help each of you out in your various operations and endeavors in the beekeeping world. It's just the little critters are just so interesting and so cool, and they do such neat things, and they really, it's just amazing that we are able to be stewards and work with these little bees to be able to watch and to partake in what the Lord has actually given us the opportunity to do. So, Brian, tell us what's been going on what's going on in your neck of the woods in the next few days, and what we can expect to see from Castle Hives.
Well, I went over and checked on Satan's home, and I'll have a video coming up. I got it partway edited, probably on Friday. I'll be done tomorrow. I've got a busy day, so I'm hoping to get that edited and out Friday. But I probably will end up over in the yard Sunday, I think. Just to check not on the Demerade colonies, but on all of the others. Just I want to make sure that everyone has enough room, things like that, just to make sure they're situated for this nice weather that we've got coming. It's, maintaining space and just staying ahead of them. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to the next 2 weeks or so with no rain. So 70s, just perfect weather.
That'll be awesome. I wish we had more of that coming here, but beggars can't be choosers. Before we move on, I did want to mention tomorrow night, on Thursday night at, I think it's at 8:30 Central Time. Keith, if you're still in here, Keith is going to be doing Keith Spillman at Half Tracks and Honeybees is going to be doing a video on, what is it? I think it's basically marketing your bees, marketing your honey and things like that. And he has invited, me on just because I do a lot of wholesale to stores, and kind of, I guess I'll be talking. I don't know if I'll be on all night, but I'll be on for a little while anyway. And they're going to be talking about marketing your products, which is a great topic because so many of us, we have all this honey, all these products, and we just need to figure out how to get rid of them and share these tremendous products with others. And so, if you get a chance to tune in at Keith Spillman, Half Tracks and Honeybees tomorrow night, just tune in 8:30 to 10:30, I believe, Eastern time, or 7:30 to 9:30 Central time. But down here, my hives are set up. I don't have a lot planned to do with them. Of course, I'll be checking in on, peeking in on, driving out, just watching them some if I can. But I don't have a lot of actual bee work to do. And one thing I will be doing over the next couple of weeks, hopefully we'll have enough clear weather for them to pack honey in, but I'll be cracking lids if I see a colony that doesn't have any bees in a super, and the colony next to it is like jam out with white wax. They felt they're going to bust out of the hive. I'll take that box off of the weaker one and put it on the stronger one. Call that robbing from the poor and giving to the rich. That's just what I do this time of year, to be able to maximize that honey and that let the strong colonies do what they're designed to do. The mediocre colonies, they just don't need as much. So we'll take a little bit from them. I found that to work real well in the past. But as far as like going down in the brood nest, doing deep inspections, that's kind of, we're taking a little break from that for the next, almost a month now, probably 4 weeks or so. Just ain't gonna be doing a lot of that. Our plan is to harvest the 19th and 20th of June. And the tallow flow usually is done by about mid-June. And so hopefully over the next couple of weeks, we'll have enough decent days for them to fill those honey supers up. Otherwise, it may be a little bit of a bust. I hope not. But there is some honey already in the hive. So I just hope they can continue to pack it in. But that's my hope, and that's what my goal is. So we'll see what happens. And of course, I'll be trying to document it on the channel. But as far as videos go, I may be putting out a few here or there. I might do some other things besides bee work, some videos on some different things, or I'm not sure what's going to happen. I never know, but I do appreciate all you guys being on here tonight, and things are rocking and rolling down here in this area. After we harvest our summer pull in June, then we're pretty much going into 2027 mode, just trying to make sure we get the bees treated and taken care of and try and keep them strong through the next year and do whatever it takes. So that's kind of where we're looking at there. So we have about another, month left of fun beekeeping, and then it gets a little bit monotonous and not so much fun here, but it all is worth it. So that in 2027, hopefully we can have another fun year again in the spring if things go as planned. But that's what's going on here. I do have a video that I about have set up, edited. I still have a little bit to do on it, but just a little bit, another kind of watch through and make sure everything's how I want it. And so that video will be dropping. It's the one that I filmed this past weekend, just kind of doing all kinds of stuff out there. I'm not sure what to title it because I really did a little bit of everything. Just really getting that App and Farm bee yard ready for the next few weeks, kind of getting them set up. And so that'll be dropping here, probably the latest Sunday, maybe before then. So just be looking for that one. And then, of course, Greg, I'm sure he'll talk about it a little bit here, but he's got a great video that's going to be dropping tomorrow evening. And maybe, Greg, you can set that up. And I'll turn the time over to you to kind of close us out, Greg.
Well, as Bruce said, we just want to thank everyone for spending time with us tonight. I know we say it every single time, but, 4 years into this thing, it still doesn't get old. This is not just a bee chat. This is a fellowship. And I think that's why this is different. This is a dedicated time of the week where we are getting together and kind of sharing our life's journey and kind of everything along the way. And I think that's why this has stayed the course. That's why this particular bee chat is different from something that I don't really quite have the words to really to put in there. But yes, we've got a great video coming out tomorrow. You definitely want to check it out. It's everything from Bucky's brisket to Bondo Baby Ford pickup trucks to marking queens, washing colonies, feeding colonies. And if you've ever wondered what in the world is a warehouse of wieners, well, you want to find out tomorrow night what in the world that is all about. I guess I want to end with this. Is we only have 40 some days of the season left before we're heading towards winter, and the bees change and the weather changes and everything starts to change. There's not much time. So I want to encourage folks to just dig in there, stay the course, do what has to get done, stick with it. But in this season right now, right now, all of us, maybe you have a situation where there's a lot of pressure being put on you. Maybe it's a business relationship. Maybe it's the bees. Maybe it's trying to balance all the things out. There's all these pressures constantly. And it feels like you're always the one that's just getting squeezed and squeezed and squeezed and squeezed. I just want to encourage you to make the time to prioritize your life. And what you will find is everything completely changes. And what I mean by that is when you are spending your time in the morning, in pure devotion, where you're spending time getting into God's word, but also spending the time in silence, in quiet. You've got to give yourself these moments where you've got nothing. There's no phone, there's no Wi-Fi, there's no TV, there's no nothing. There's just you sitting there as an open vessel with ears to hear, eyes to see. I have no better way to say this other than that is where it all happens. Something happened this week, and because I've been putting the time into doing that, I had ears to hear something, and it was just a little passing comment. But there was an opportunity this week. And because I followed through with what was on my heart, what I heard, I think it made a difference for somebody. And we're all in a position to make a difference for somebody else, to be a lighthouse to the world. If we don't take the time and quiet ourselves down, sometimes you put yourself in a position where there are so many distractions and interferences where you can't hear that voice. You can't hear that direction from God. And you might find that there's a lost opportunity where you had the opportunity to throw a lifeline out for somebody, to bring them to the boat, to bring them to the shore. When we talk about beekeeping, it's a brotherhood. It's about being our brother's keeper. And there's a lot of folks out here right now that are just trying to figure things out. They're just trying to stay above the water right now. Somebody out there needs you to throw a lifeline out to them. I just want to encourage you to be that lifeline for somebody. Sometimes when you're in leadership, sometimes you feel like you're the shepherd. But guys, sometimes you're that lost one sheep. And we all need that shepherd to help bring us right back into the fold again. So I would just want to encourage you guys to take the time to hear. Give yourself the opportunities, those quiet times where you can focus, where you can pray, where you can get in touch, where God can actually get a hold of you and use you for something bigger and better than yourself. To me, that's what it's all about. When we say be the lighthouse, that is exactly what it means. Next week, guys, which channel are we going to be on? We'll be on the Nature's Image Farm channel next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Keep an eye out for Big Fun Beekeeping with Bruce's Bees. It's going to be a great video. It's an inside track view of what it's like, you know, when you love bees and you love people and you love that brotherhood. Like this is, I think you guys will really enjoy seeing that one. Keep an eye out on Sundays too. We're going to do something different with the kind of a devotional kind of videos then too. I hope you guys enjoy that. I hope that's doing something for you. I hope that helps with your heart and your mind as well. And until the next time, we want to remind you to be the lighthouse and be who God wants you to be in this world. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.